they blocked it on every level. So you have not just surgeons that don't want this. You also have the pharmaceutical companies, because you can't patent a mesenchymal stem cell. And the whole FDA approval process in the US is based around having things you can patent, own, and make your money back. Because it costs hundreds of millions or $1 billion to bring a new medicine to market. So if you brought MSCs to market, it could take 10 years. You could spend hundreds of millions. And then all you would do is open the market up to your competition because you can't patent it. So nobody's going to spend that money.
Well, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, where high performance health meets non-toxic living. I'm Brittany Ford, a holistic nutritionist, bringing you science-backed strategies in biohacking, longevity, and holistic wellness. Whether you're navigating fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, or simply striving for optimal well-being, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thank you for tuning into the episode today. This was such a fun interview to do, all about stem cells, human growth hormone, and really the globalization of healthcare and medicine and the medical system that we are now seeing. I dive into all of this with Josh. He has a clinic down in Mexico. One day I hope to visit and try stem cells myself. Even just from a anti-aging and longevity perspective, I think there is so much value there. If you are somebody who is dealing with significant disease, autoimmune issues, anything that is chronic in nature, I think stem cell therapy can be super beneficial to that. In this episode, we talk about the sourcing of stem cells, where they actually come from and what the process looks like. We also talk about banking your umbilical cord and your placenta. Does it impact your health as a mom? Is it worth taking, or is it more for your kid? And what can your kid use that blood and that tissue for and those cells for in the future? So dive into some really niche, cool topics in this episode. I learned a lot, and I'm really excited to see where regenerative medicine goes in the next 5 to 10 years. I think this is a booming field, and it's only going to become more accessible, affordable, and easier for people across the world to be able to benefit from. Before we dive into this episode, a shout out to Bioptimizers. They have digestive enzymes that I'm honestly obsessed with. They're called mass enzymes. And if you looked in my car, you would see a bottle of them. They're also in my pantry. They're in my little supplement basket that I have. They're everywhere because I think digestive enzymes in general are a staple in every single person's supplement stack. Because when you eat something that is filled with food maybe that you typically don't eat, like gluten or lactose, it can help reduce any inflammation that can come from eating that in your body. Like if you have like pizza and dessert and pop and soda and a whole bunch of things in one meal, it can reduce that heavy load that can cause on your digestive system. It can reduce the inflammation because the digestive enzymes help to break down the food easier and faster. But it can also help with protein. So when we eat protein, it's broken down into amino acids. But just because it's broken down into amino acids doesn't actually mean that we are absorbing all of those amino acids. But when we have the digestive enzymes, the protease, it helps to absorb those amino acids specifically. So you're getting more of the protein that you're eating, which we love. We love it for hormone balancing, especially as women. We love it for muscle growth, recovery, rest, everything, fat burning, all of it. So if you are somebody who is prioritizing protein right now, which seems to be the trend that we are seeing, digestive enzymes and protein go hand in hand. So check out Bioptimizers, use my discount code BiohackingBrittany, and then you will get 10% off of all of their supplements, but specifically as well, mass enzymes. And a shout out to Novus. Novus is really cool. This is a company that created a drink, a powdered drink that you add to water, and it targets all 12 hallmarks of aging. So there's 12 different ways that we understand that we age on a cellular basis. And you can take this one drink in the morning and it will target all 12 of those due to the ingredients in this Novus packet. So cool. I love it. I had Novus a few years ago and I loved it. And then I stopped and now I've been back on it for the last few months and I'm obsessed. The thing that I love the most about this is that I actually feel super energized in the moment when I take Novus. And I love that it's supporting my longevity long-term as well. So short-term health and long-term health are both targeted and I feel the difference and I'm obsessed. So if you're a biohacker, Novus is definitely a staple for you. If you care about longevity, self-optimization, health optimization, Novus is a must for you. And you can get their powder. It's called Novus Core. I will link it in the show notes and on my website. And use my discount code biohackingbrittany and you get to save as well. I have a subscription, so it just gets delivered to my house. You should do the same. Makes it super easy. Enjoy this podcast episode. And if you want to be featured on my Ask Me Anything episodes on Fridays, send me a message on Instagram at biohackingbrittany, and I would be happy to answer one of your health questions. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you soon for another episode. Welcome back to Biohacking with Brittany. I am thrilled that you are listening today. We are going to be diving into stem cells, which is something I haven't talked about in quite a while on the show. And I am joined by Josh Kettner, who is a true pioneer in this space and in regenerative medicine in general. And he is joining us from Mexico, where he is the founder of his clinic, Dream Body Clinic. He's also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Stem Cell Therapy and has dedicated his career to helping people heal, rejuvenate, and defy the aging process. So, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I am so jealous that you are just hanging out in Mexico, helping people age better.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm looking to my right and see the ocean. It's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell me about your clinic. Why the focus on stem cells in the aging and longevity space?
So it's not where we started, actually. We started originally with medications focused on regenerative medicine. I moved down to Mexico about 17 years ago, and I kind of take it all back. I got into it because my dad had Lou Gehrig's disease. That was about 20 years ago. And you just kind of see firsthand how messed up the American medical system can be when you're dealing with something terminal like that. And it kind of put me on this journey of trying to figure out what could help other people. After he passed, started working in assisted living and was helping people with that. And then read this article one day and it was like, man outsources parents to India. I was like, genius, like, they're great doctors, not overregulated. These are big problems with just the whole healthcare industry in general, especially assisted living. So I had a friend, we had always traveled to Mazatlan, Mexico for vacation every year. And I'm like, well, that'd be, Mexico's pretty similar. Great doctors, low cost of care, not overregulated. And I had a friend that had moved here to Puerto Vallarta to do real estate. And I moved here. And in the process, learned that, there was a lot of these things you could do. I met my wife and I never quite made the assisted living thing work out, but learned that a lot of these medicines we wished we could have got for my dad when he was sick and they wouldn't let us have, like human growth hormone, testosterone, different things that they just, in Seattle, they told him, oh, you can't have those, even though you've got a terminal illness, because those fall under the Anabolic Steroid Act. And he's like 50 and dying. So it's like, there's, who cares?
Wow.
So they really, limited what he could have. And then when I met my wife, her sister's a doctor and learned we could get medicines like that. And it's legal to seek medical treatment abroad and return home with medication. So we actually started with that. And then about 9 years ago, you start hearing rumors that they were doing stem cells in Mexico, but you got to be cautious with that. There's a lot of rumors that things that are too good to be true and are. But we met this doctor, did his PhD in cellular biology about 18 years ago. And sure enough, he was doing it right. So we started working with him and then actually realized the quality control here just isn't quite where you would want it to be. And we realized now people already have this bad perception of Mexico. This has to be like next level. So we created a partnership with the University of Guadalajara and started doing our own thing. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Wow. Wow, that's really incredible. And I'm glad you were able to find solutions and really just kind of like look outside of the box, which I think a lot of people are turning to now. Um, I'm curious just before we dive into like actual stem cells and what they do for you, just on like the political side and the legal side of this, like so there's this act that doesn't let you have stem cells in the States. I'm in Canada, so you can't get stem cells in the States. So you have to be able to fly outside of the States and then you can get them, but you can bring them back into the country, but you're not allowed to just source them from the country while you're there.
No, that stem cells is a bit different. With medicine,
Mhm.
you can do it. Like Canada's real famous for diabetics in the US. Will go to Canada to get their insulin because it's way cheaper.
Mhm.
So for medicines, you can do that internationally. With stem cells, you can't ship them. So in the US, they have a couple of laws that prohibit it. It's mainly to protect the big pharmaceutical companies because the process in the US is that you can use stem cells. They do fat derived, they do bone marrow derived, they'll even do umbilical cord derived like we do, but they can't isolate and then culture the cells. So you're not getting a pure product and you're getting far fewer cells. So we're able to take those same cells from these tissues, isolate them in the lab, and then replicate them. So we get huge numbers. So like if you do fat derived, you might get like 100,000 stem cells. And what they won't tell you is only like 1% of what they're injecting or giving you is actually mesenchymal stem cells. We worked with Dr. Arnold Kaplan in the past. He was the professor at Case Western University that actually discovered and named mesenchymal stem cells. And he would get really mad at these clinics using bone marrow or fats. You're like, that's a cell therapy. That's not a stem cell therapy. He goes, that's no different than Coca-Cola selling you, an apple juice saying all natural, but then you read the back label and it's 99% sugar and water.
Mhm.
You're not getting quite the pure product. Canada, on the other hand, like they were doing what we were doing. They stopped doing it about 7 years ago. There was a big clinic in Ontario that was doing it. And the problem was the orthopedic surgeons threw such a fit because it was taking too many surgeries away from them that they actually got it shut. And there's pretty much no stem cells in Canada anymore. They blocked it on every level. So you have not surgeons that don't want this. You also have the pharmaceutical companies because you can't patent a mesenchymal stem cell. And the whole FDA approval process in the US is based around having things you can patent, own, and make your money back. Because it costs hundreds of millions or $1 billion to bring a new medicine to market. So if you brought MSCs to market, it could take 10 years. You could spend hundreds of millions. And then all you would do is open the market up to your competition because you can't patent it. So nobody's going to
Right.
spend that money.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating. I'm based in Ontario now, and yeah, I can't believe a clinic closed 7 years ago. It doesn't surprise me though, like that. It doesn't surprise me that this is where we're at with our healthcare system in Canada and in the US, that people have to fly to places like Mexico to actually get the type of support that should be more available and accessible to people. Just out of curiosity, I, we travel to Central America quite a bit and I haven't looked into it, but for Central America, like countries like Costa Rica or maybe Panama, Nicaragua, do you know if this type of therapy is available there, or is this more just a Mexico thing that's close by?
Yeah, no, they have them there. I know there's like at least one or two in Costa Rica that are getting more famous. There's Panama is probably the most famous because of Dr. Riordan. And he did that interview on Joe Rogan like 8 or 9 years ago that really blew up.
Hmm.
Uh, and he did his PhD under Dr. Kaplan, right? So we do the exact same thing. I think there's like one or two in Colombia,
Cool.
and then the Cayman Islands. So those are kind of the main places. But Mexico and Panama have the most clear, like rules and regulations for it. Where the other countries, like I don't even think it's fully legal in Colombia, but they still do it there. So it's like
Right.
that's kind of crazy.
Right. Okay. So talk to me about the process of stem cells. I'm so curious. Like, if I came to you and I said, hey, I'm looking for stem cells to rejuvenate my health, and I didn't necessarily have a specific problem, how would you go about the whole process from A to B or A to Z, I guess?
So usually people find us either referral or maybe they see one of my videos and they call up and they're usually talking with me. I mean, we're not going to be the biggest clinic in the world. We treat about 150 people a month and we are happy with that. Like we don't want to get much bigger. So you talk with me, we go through it. And for anti-aging, usually our IV treatment is the best way to go. Typically do like 100 million IV. Now, look, if you had a chronic degenerative disease, an autoimmune disease, something else, then we go based on body weight. We recommend about 1.4 million per pound or 3 million per kilo. But if, like you, if you just want to feel better, you're looking to kind of rejuvenate, 100 million IV is the best way to go, in our opinion. And it's like just simple IV. So you call up, talk with me if everything makes sense. From there, we kind of figure out when a good time to come would be. We ask people what their ideal week is. They tell us, and it's typically a 4-day trip. It's like day 1, you arrive and rest. Day 2, we do blood work. Day 3, we do the IV. And day 4, you could fly home. So it's simple. And you get a nice little vacation out of it. Puerto Vallarta looks like Hawaii. It's like, we call it cheap Hawaii. So it's nice.
Yeah.
And these cells are going to go through your system, and they do a few really important things. They're going to target inflammation, and inflammation is like the root cause of almost every disease and problem you think of. And when they get to the inflammation, they start working to fix the underlying problem. So it's not like a pill that just masks symptoms. They're trying to fix the problem. And even though they're called a stem cell, they're really not a stem cell when they're in your body. So this is kind of where it gets confusing, because there's different types of stem cells. Mesenchymal stem cells work via this thing called the paracrine effect. So it means, imagine they're like the manager on the construction site, sending out signals, telling everything what to do. They're not turning into other cell types. So, but in that process, they can still heal these things because they'll help get rid of scar tissue, which is usually preventing. Because when you get injured now when you're older, white blood cells rush to the area and they do a patch-up job. It's like if you hurt your elbow, white blood cells put all this fibrosis. Well, now your normal growth factors in your bloodstream can't get past that. And that's why things typically hit a point where they don't get any better. They get so far and then that's it. Well, the stem cells get in, they clear out that scar tissue. Then they start fixing the underlying tissue. So they're really good for that. Now, an IV isn't great for joints because it's going through the bloodstream. Cartilage, ligaments, tendons, they get very little blood flow. So you don't see a huge difference there. Those are better with direct injections. But as far as the anti-aging, your organs are all going to get hit by the IV. And they do two other really cool things in the bloodstream. First, they interact with immune cells. So any immune cells that maybe aren't working properly, I like to think of it like they got maybe like kind of bad software, right? It's kind of like hitting the factory reset button, gets them back working the way they should, like you did when you were a little kid. So people get much healthier, fight off sicknesses much better. I think my son was like 3 or 4 when I did my first IV, and he was getting sick all the time. And I would get really tired. I would never get sick, and I still hardly ever get sick. My immune system has been boosted so much from the cells. And then the other thing they do is they donate mitochondria to weak cells. So the mitochondria is the energy source of your cells. It's the motor. And if it's weak or they detect weak cells, they actually attach what are called tunneling nanotubes, and they donate their mitochondria, which is huge for anti-aging. And we're getting amazing results on DNA methylation tests showing people's age going backwards on the biological level.
Wow. At some point, we've all been sold a big lie, including yours truly. It's called the protein lie. Starting in the 80s, supplement companies began pushing massive protein consumption. We all believed that more protein equaled more muscle growth. And I'm here to tell you that is a big fat lie. So let's say you eat an 8-ounce chicken breast and you're consuming about 40 grams of protein. However, just because something contains 40 grams of protein, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to absorb all 40 grams. Without enzymes, most of it ends up in the toilet bowl. Ouch. This is because your small intestine can only absorb protein that's been broken down into smaller building blocks called amino acids. It doesn't matter if you're consuming 30 grams of protein or 300 grams of protein. If you don't have a sufficient supply of enzymes to digest that protein, your muscles will be starving for those vital building blocks. That's why it's crucial you take a high quality enzyme. Before you run out and buy a bottle of enzymes, you need to know exactly what to look for. The sad truth is most enzymes are of little to no value if you want to build muscle. The hefty costs stop most companies from developing and stabilizing proteolytic enzymes. And so that's why the one that I trust and I use myself and love, and honestly, my whole entire family uses it, is called Mass Enzymes by Optimizers. Mass Enzymes is a full spectrum enzyme formula with more protease than any other commercially available, with 5 different kinds of protease. Plus, it contains all the other key enzymes you need for optimal digestion. Mass Enzymes is a full spectrum enzyme formula, and this is my go-to. And you can try it today, risk-free. Their 365-day full money-back guarantee is the gold standard in the industry. So go to bioptimizers.com/biohackingbrittany and use my discount code biohackingbrittany, and you will get 10% off your order. I literally have a bottle of this Mass Enzymes in my car, at work, in my pantry, everywhere. I use it for big meals if I eat anything that's a little out of the ordinary. And it really helps me to feel better in my digestion, and also makes me so much happier that I am absorbing my protein and getting the gains that I want. We all want more gains. So check it out and enjoy digesting your protein better. Okay, a couple things that came to mind here that I am just like, my wheels are turning. You talked about repairing tissues after an injury. So I had a baby about 9 months ago, and fortunately I had a C-section. It was not part of the plan, and we found out he was breech and all these things. Anyway, had a C-section, and my scar's been healing really well. I've been doing multiple things like massage, red light therapy, all of these different biohacks. But I wonder if stem cells could actually help and support that, because like you said, I feel like I'm almost getting to a point where I don't know how much more improvement I can get in it, healing, and I can feel like the scar tissue underneath where they cut open, because they cut through like 7 layers, right? So if I were to come and, fly to Mexico and do stem cells with you, would I see a difference in my C-section scar, or would it take a few sessions, or what do you think about that?
So the physical scar, the way it looks, it won't change. Like,
okay.
I found, like, I have a good scar here from a car wreck I was in when I was 16. It has not changed that. And I've done cells on my face, IVs, probably more stem cells than anyone out there. So the problem with external scars is once that tissue has regenerated, that's its new form. So it's not going to change that form. What we're talking about is internal scar tissue. So like my wife, when we had our son, did a C-section, and they split you like end to end. It's crazy how much they go through, right? And there's a lot of scar tissue under the surface. So yes, it helped a lot for her to get rid of the internal scar tissue, because she was like having hardness in her stomach and some bloating issues, and it helped a lot in that regard.
Wow. So even just one session with you, like one dose of stem cells through the IVs, could make a difference, where maybe when you massage your stomach, it doesn't feel as hard and sticky as it can.
Oh, for sure. And you should still do the other things like the red light therapy. It's a combination will give you the best results. Some people will do even like the shockwave therapy there can help. If you hit it from every angle, you're going to see the best results, because the IV is not targeted. It's going through the whole system. So if that area is not really inflamed at that time, you'll see some improvement, but maybe not like a ton. It's more on like physical injuries where you see the biggest improvement.
Right. Right. And there's probably a time frame as well. Like, say I had access to stem cells at any given time. Like you're saying, if I'm more inflamed within maybe the first 6 weeks after a C-section versus now, 9 months later, I was probably going to be more effective in the first 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, completely. And in fact, that's why, like, are you familiar at all with like PRP? So in my opinion, they should have PRP centers on every corner, because if they did, that scar tissue would never have time to form. If you put all those growth factors into the area right away, oh man, things will heal so fast. I've done it for tons of local patients that have hurt themselves. Like, I'm in stem cells, and now we put PRP in and they're fine if you do it right away. But if you wait a couple weeks, now your only hope is the stem cells, because they're at that point the only thing that can get rid of that scar tissue. So yes, it definitely, the sooner you get it, the better. But the good part with the stem cells is I have patients with injuries from like 50 years ago that have healed up just by getting the cells in that area. So it's so age dependent, but the inflammation dependent for sure.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really encouraging because I know there are women who have had C-sections like 5 years ago who feel very self-conscious about how it looks. And they send me messages and I'm like, okay, you might be able to do these things, but maybe stem cells is actually the route to take because they're going to get more success even years later.
Yeah. And not so much on the look, but on the feel for sure.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The other thing you mentioned is the boost to the mitochondria, which I think is very interesting. The ovaries next to the brain and heart have the most mitochondria in the female body. I think it's like 100,000 per cell. And so when we talk a lot about like fertility and optimizing fertility, we talk a lot about mitochondria. So could you have somebody come in and say, hey, I'm struggling to get pregnant. Let me try stem cells. And theoretically, that would support the mitochondria in the ovaries, which then could support, ovulation and having healthier eggs.
Should. I mean, years ago, our head doctor was a gynecologist, and he had a procedure. It was similar to IVF, where you would go there right to where the ovum are and inject the stem cells. And there is some research on that for like premature ovarian failure, but even then, it's still pretty hit or miss because you don't necessarily are going to get the woman to start releasing those ovum like they should. So we stopped offering it because of that. We tend to see if we don't see like an 80% success rate with the treatment, we really don't want to market it or keep it. And with it should be able to help, but like I would never promote it for that. Let's put it that way. Like it would make sense that it would help, but it would have to be like nothing else is working. I mean, we've seen the same thing with men with like sperm production. We have seen it increase, but it's not everyone, and it isn't consistent enough for me to be like, hey, this is a thing for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because like male infertility is increasing and so is female infertility. So a lot of people are looking for answers like something like stem cells that can boost egg quality or boost sperm quality. And obviously there's something to be said about like lifestyle, diet, all of that too. But at the same time, I think, biohacking in a way through like stem cells would be very interesting, even though, you might not have the highest success rate.
Well, and you'd want to do a combination. I mean, look, for men, you'd be like, hey, let's do some stem cells. Let's do like some HCG or some Clomid to increase sperm count. Like, I think you'd have a much better chance. And then with women, we've actually got like some doctors that, were having fertility issues that came to us from the East Coast that, they would use the growth hormone plus the stem cells. And yeah, it did help. And it did, a couple of them did get pregnant. So, but I tell you for sure, so that's the problems. I don't have, the magic bullet to say this will do that. So that's why.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there probably just needs to be more research in the space in general, which is kind of like a lot of these things when it comes to fertility. And that it's hard because there's not a lot of money that wants to fund it. Like a lot of people don't want to fund it. But it is interesting, and I think it is a space that's growing. So if I came to you and you gave me this IV of stem cells, where are those stem cells actually sourced from? Like whose stem cells are they?
Great question. So we're very selective on this. And the good part is we don't need a lot. We only use a new umbilical. We use the umbilical cord. It's called the Wharton jelly inside the cord. We use the placenta because it all comes together. And it's weird. A lot of places will tell you they do umbilical cord stem cells, but they're using the placenta too. You have to. It all comes together. It's a very capillary rich tissue. Well, mesenchymal stem cells are pericytes. They live on the outside of capillaries. Like little octopuses hanging on. So you want that capillary rich tissue, but you want the youngest tissue. The umbilical cord and placenta are only 9 months old. So we want that young, healthy, fresh tissue because the cells will replicate the fastest and they've had the shortest exposure to an immune system. And this is real important why, like if you had an autoimmune disease, you would never want to use your own stem cells because they're already compromised. So this is why we need really young, healthy women that don't have issues. So we work with a team of gynecologists that only work with first-time mothers because statistically, first-time mothers are the healthiest, have the best birth like success, all of that. They have to be between the ages of 18 and 25 because
Wow.
as crazy as it sounds, I mean, women, if you give birth after the age of 30, that's called a geriatric birth. I mean, that's a tough one to handle, but that's what they call it. So you want the younger, healthier women. And we want to make sure that obviously they're disease free. So lots of blood work, but a mesenchymal stem cell can't carry a virus. So you don't have to worry about that. But if the donor had a retrovirus, there's a less than 5% chance that could get carried over. So most retroviruses are sexually transmitted. So we even asked the women, how many sexual partners have you had? If they answer more than one, disqualified. I mean, we're having to take their word for it, but look, they're already married. Pretty good chance like they're not lying about that. And then we take it a step further. Like, have you had any of the COVID vaccines? If they answer yes, they're disqualified. And that's because a lot of our patients they want nothing to do with any of the COVID vaccines. Not that we're really worried about that, but it makes people feel better. So we, we go as in depth as we can. And we only need a new one of these every maybe like 3 or 4 months. So we're not going and then that tissue's taken to the lab. You only have about 6 hours to get it from the birthing room to the lab, and you start dissecting it to have nice fresh cells. And then that's put into these test tubes with what's called collagenase. It separates the cells from the tissue, and you're centrifuging it. And then you're taking that solution to another centrifuge, and you're spinning it down to where we call it the pellet. It's like this little white pellet of concentrated stem cells. And we put that in the flask, which is filled with culturing medium, and it's then put into the incubator. And the incubator is think of it like a special oven. I mean, my family bakers from Holland. It's kind of funny how similar the biology is to you got your own recipe, you got your own culturing medium, and then you're putting it, which the culturing medium's of food, into the incubator. It's got the perfect oxygen settings. We want to make sure the oxygen is really low, because when these get taken out and put into the human body, you're looking at an environment of 10 to 13% oxygen. Now that stresses them, but that gives you the best cells. So we're doing that in the incubation. The way we do it is we've got different batches. I mean, it takes anywhere from a month or more for these to get done, or it can take weeks. So we take them out so that every day we've got new batches coming out. So it's like fresh croissants from the bakery, right? Like every day you've got ever using food. Make sure if you're doing treatment today, we would have taken your cells out last night, and we would administer within 24 hours because they'll stay viable at room temp and for about 3 to 4 days. So we just do it right away. That way we're not worrying about any die off, and you're getting it from a good, healthy source.
Wow. Imagine waking up each day feeling energized, mentally sharp, and visibly youthful, no matter your age. I've unlocked exactly that with Novus Core, and it's completely upgraded my approach to longevity. Novus Core is the only longevity supplement that targets all 12 key causes of aging, something no other product does. Most supplements only address 1 or 2 aspects of aging, but Novus Core is a complete formula designed to work across all the biological pathways of aging in one simple daily drink. Developed by leading longevity experts from Harvard Medical School and MIT, Novus Core is backed by serious scientific research. What makes Novus Core so effective? It's packed with 12 scientifically validated ingredients like fisetin, glycine, calcium alpha, ketoglutarate, and magnesium, each included at scientifically proven doses. These ingredients work together to protect your DNA, help reduce inflammation and cellular senescence, and support stem cell health, effectively slowing aging at its root causes. And here's something even more exciting. You don't have to wait years to feel the difference. 81% of Novus customers report noticeable improvements in their skin, mood, energy, or sleep within just 2 weeks, with even greater benefits accumulating over time. Since incorporating Novus Core, I've experienced incredible boosts in my energy, honestly, right away when I'm drinking it, improved sleep, sharper cognition, and balanced moods, and even visibly healthier skin, which we all love. I genuinely feel younger, healthier, and more vibrant every single day when I have this. If you are ready to take your longevity journey to the next level, you can visit novuslabs.com and use my discount code biohackingbrittany for 10% off of your first month subscription of Novus Core. That's NOVOSLABS.com with code biohackingbrittany for 10% off your first month's subscription. Enjoy and let me know what you think. Yeah, that's interesting. And I didn't know it worked like that. Like, I didn't know that that was the screening process that you have for women. It makes sense. And I was thinking about like the whole vaccine thing and, what vaccines did the woman have while she was pregnant? All of these questions, including COVID. So if I were to get pregnant again in a few years, I guess if I wasn't in Canada, say I was in Mexico, could I take my own placenta and my own umbilical cord and then bank stem cells from that and then use them for my own health?
No, and you don't need to.
Okay.
But you wouldn't want to, and I'll explain why. So first, mesenchymal stem cells lack what's called HLA, human leukocyte antigen. That's like say you needed a kidney and I'm a perfect match. I donate you a kidney. You're going to have to take anti-rejection meds the rest of your life because our HLA is different. Everyone's different. So mesenchymal stem cells are considered immune privileged and that they're invisible to the immune system. So we can take them from another person and use them. Now, there's no advantage in that, but there's no disadvantage. The advantage comes in that if we used your own, well, like for example, if I use my own, I'm 42. So if we start culturing those cells, well, they're going to replicate. The telomere length is going to shorten with every replication. So if I start culturing my own cells, they're going to technically, some of those, if we go far enough, they could be like 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. And they're going to go senescent faster than my normal cells. Now, by taking them from a donor, the advantage is this. Let's start with, by taking them from myself, they have my HLA. So they will differentiate. It takes about 8 months to a year that they can turn into like a chondrocyte, an adipocyte, these different like source cells for like or cartilage or fat. And if they're from myself, they're going to go and become, muscle tissue or cartilage. But if they're from a donor, when they do differentiate at that 8 month to year mark, well, they're going to represent the donor's HLA. I won't know anything's happening, but my immune system will kill those cells and they're out of my system. And the good part is they've already done their job. They've healed. They've done what they needed. But if they're, now I've got all these much older cells from myself in my body, and that can cause problems down the road. So you really don't want them from yourself, actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense when you explain it like that. And so then how does that tie into people who choose to bank their cords, like the umbilical cord for their children, for their children's future health?
Yes. And I think that's very smart. I did it for my son, but you wouldn't use those as a mesenchymal stem cell. You want those in case the kid someday has leukemia. And then you're going to take hematopoietic stem cells instead of a bone marrow transfer, because the hematopoietic stem cell is in your bone marrow and they're what create red and white blood cells. So if you had leukemia, like I had an uncle that had leukemia, it's my mom's cousin, but I call him Uncle Mike, and he had to have a bone marrow transfer from his sister. Well, they had close enough markers, but their HLA is different. And what's crazy with hematopoietic stem cells is that, Uncle Mike technically on a DNA level is his sister. So it's a really crazy thing with hematopoietic stem cells. If you do a bone marrow transfer like that, you will take on their DNA. So if Uncle Mike commits a crime and they go test him, they could end up arresting his sister because that shows up at it. It's really crazy. And fortunately, mesenchymal stem cells have no DNA transfer, nothing like that. So it depends on the sickness. So if you had those banked, you would want to use those for more of bloodborne type cancer diseases, which you really want because you don't want to take on someone else's DNA if you don't have to. So it's very smart to do that.
Right. Right. And then likewise, though, if I got leukemia, then I could use those cells as well as the mom.
No, your HLA is different.
So it just wouldn't translate.
It wouldn't really matter. It wouldn't matter if you use someone else's problem.
Right. Right. And so then, even for siblings, if I have another kid thinking, I'm going to bank his cord blood or whatever, their cord blood, but it can only be used for that one child. I won't be able to translate to my first child. Yeah. Because I looked into doing it, and essentially, it's difficult in Canada, like we've talked about. And the criticism that I read online was like, you might be able to pull it off in some way, but you don't know that by the time that you actually might need those tissues or those cells, is that company still there? Are they giving you the right stuff? Is it someone else's? Like, it's all this like ethical. Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it being someone else's. That's hype. I mean, I've been to the lab where they do this, like, I said Cell Tech or one of those. I mean, they're worldwide. They're not going out of business because I have my sons up there is in Guadalajara, which is the second biggest city here in Mexico, but they're all over the US and Canada. So I guess my advice would find the biggest company and do it with them because they're not going out of business if they're a big publicly traded company. I mean, it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think they're getting money every year from like probably tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Like they go out of business. They definitely mess something else much worse up. I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's a good idea. In fact, I would say come to Mexico and have your kid because you get dual citizenship and it's going to cost you a lot less for the same service. So,
Yeah.
that's what, I mean, my son was born here and he's lived here his whole life, but he has US and Mexican citizenship. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. We're thinking of more Central America, like Costa Rica. We're actually going this week. Oh my goodness. We're going this week to Nicaragua, and we're looking at properties and that sort of stuff. But part of the thinking is like, if we have another kid, do we have the kid there so that we can get citizenship and potentially have access to some of these services that are just so difficult now in Canada and the US?
No, it's smart to do. I mean, it makes residency much easier for you and different things. So it's a very smart move. Like I should get my citizenship here pretty soon. I'm in the final stages, but
Cool.
I got it years ago. I mean, it's kind of funny, but my son is like my anchor baby. Like once I had him, I could it fast tracked the whole. It's normally a 5-year process here in Mexico. But if you have a kid here, it's like I think you can do it within like a year or two.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I'd love to switch gears a bit and talk about HGH, human growth hormone. What do you see the real benefits of something like this? And how do you kind of see it playing out, or how do you use it in your clinic?
Sure. So I personally have been on it for about 13 years and I love it. It's very simple. It's a little teeny tiny needle. It's like an insulin needle. You inject it every morning. And here are the benefits, right? So when you inject it, it binds to fat cells. And who doesn't want to lose fat, right? So it doesn't just make you lose weight, but it'll bind to the fat cells and create what's called lipolysis. So you breathe out fat. So it breaks the fat down much easier. It turns your metabolism back to like you were 20. It's probably the best way to look at it. You have to do the work, but if you go to the gym, you'll notice you burn fat like you did when you were a kid. So everybody likes that. That's why every celebrity uses it. That's probably the main reason. The second is it binds to muscle cells. So I'm not doing big giant doses, right? I mean, I'm just doing like 2 IU a day, which that's like a replacement dose because your organs, your muscles, your bones, they're all shrinking as you age.
Right.
If you do like 2 IU a day of growth hormone, it basically stops that. So, you don't want to go much higher because it will start growing. You end up like Barry Bonds or one of those like, bodybuilders where everything starts growing. That's people's fear. It's called acromegalia, that like your head's going to get bigger and your gut and all this. Well, no, at replacement doses, that doesn't happen. These bodybuilders are doing 20, 30 IU a day. They have to inject insulin with it to counteract it. That's when it gets dangerous. And it's kind of funny. You hear all the bad stuff about steroids. I have seen blood work with more bodybuilders who believe steroids really aren't dangerous for your body unless the orals, but like growth hormone with insulin's what kills these guys. So sorry, getting off topic, but but I just want to let people know how safe it is because it really is super safe. We have some of the top military doctors in the US are our patients, and they tell us the military has more studies on this than you believe, but they give it to all the top end soldiers. So that's like national secret stuff. That's why they don't let the public really have access. Then the third thing it does is it gets to your brain. You have certain memory receptors that have like connections for the HGH, and you get, technically better memory. My wife would tell you no, but then it gets to your liver and it converts into what's called IGF-1, insulin like growth factor 1. This is one of the main growth factors in your bloodstream. It's a big part of PRP. It helps tissues heal. So you heal faster. And they're finding what they did a new study called the TRIM study, and it's TRIIM. And they took 10 guys in the first study. And they're on to more now. They were all over 50. They gave them all about 2 IU per day with DHEA, the precursor to testosterone, and like I think 500 milligrams of metformin. And they found after the course of a year, all of their body mass index, muscle, all that was way better. But they had also on DNA methylation tests turned the clock back by about a year and a half, which really means 2.5 years because they'd aged a year in the process. So they are finally proving it is turning the clock back. And the bigger thing, though, was now the TRIM X study is focused on the thymus. So the thymus is a little gland right here in your chest that produces your T regulatory cells, and it shrinks as we age. It starts to calcify, and that's why your immune system gets worse as you age. It also produces nitric oxide, which helps your heart health. And they found it was actually regenerating fast. They have a new study checking that, and now there's a bunch of stem cell studies showing the same thing. So I should probably get my thymus checked, but I should have the best thymus in the world with all the stem cells and growth hormone. So
Yeah.
those are the main benefits for those.
Nice. Yeah, that's really exciting. And it's cool to see so much new research come out about it. That's very exciting. Where do you source your HGH from?
So I own a pharmacy. I have a pharmacy license, and I'm a legal distributor for medicines here. It's highly controlled. The problem in Mexico is that if you ever visit Mexico, you'll see all these little pharmacies on every corner that have like a sandwich board with things. You're like, how is that legal? And it's because it's not. That's how the narcos actually sell drugs in Mexico. Mexico's probably one of the safest places in the world because there's no drug dealing. You won't find a bad neighborhood, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Because they don't allow it. But the way that they do sell drugs, there's little pharmacies on every corner. It's like Xanax, Ambien, Ritalin, growth hormone, testosterone. Well, none of it's real. It's just their low quality stuff they're bringing from China or wherever and selling. And it's scary. I mean, I've had people get like fentanyl addictions from buying pain pills at these things. Oh. It's highly regulated here. So I have a fully regulated licensed, there's only 2 companies that are national distributors of all medicines because there's no compounding in Mexico. It's all has to be prepackaged from the factory. I mean, that's how they try to control it, but then they don't regulate these little pharmacies. So I get all of mine direct from the main suppliers like Pfizer or Merck. This is I need a growth hormone pyramid.
So it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, breast milk is very high in HGH, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of growth hormone, IGF-1 there, yeah.
Right. So theoretically, because I'm breastfeeding, I could take my own breast milk and benefit from HGH.
Yeah, you could. The other thing you can do if you want to go the natural route is if you do an infrared sauna or steam for 40 minutes, and it can be 2 sessions of 20 minutes, but it needs to be 40 minutes in a full day. That will massively spike your IGF-1 production and your growth hormone production. It only works if you do it once a week. If you do it more often than once a week, it doesn't actually work. If every day you're doing sauna, you don't get that HGH boost. You can only do it once a week. It's you don't want to stress the body too often anyway. So I love saunas and that stuff, but there's timing to it is what they're finding. And then the other way is what we do. And the cool part is this doesn't shut down your natural production. That's a big concern for people. Guys do testosterone and that does shut down your natural production. This does not. You produce so much when you're a little kid, you could never hit that feedback loop. So your body can't tell the difference of what you're injecting because this is bioidentical versus what you have already. And basically, if you're over 30, your IGF-1 levels are low. And every decade after 30, you lose another 15 to 20%. Wow. It's a constant decline.
Yeah.
It just means you're not gonna regenerate as fast. Your bone density will reduce, your muscle density. You won't see the results in the gym. So it's actually extremely safe. People worry about cancer with it, but the caveat there is nobody's been unethical enough to do any studies in that. But look, we've been doing it for 13 years. We've never had anybody develop cancer from it. And we've had thousands and thousands of patients. The thing is, if you had cancer, you wouldn't want to use it because certain tumors feed off of IGF-1. But you would have to have cancer, know you had it, and keep injecting to have an issue because it's only in your system like 12 hours. So it's out of your system very fast. So if you end up having an issue, you just stop taking it, no problem.
Interesting. Yeah, that's super interesting. And even about the sauna, because I have a sauna, it's a traditional sauna and I love it. And I usually go in, I don't know, 2 to 3 times a week for about 30 minutes. So maybe I'm overdoing it, but I love it. So it's kind of like
well, there's other benefits. I mean, they've proved if you do sauna after a workout, like you heal better. I mean, it's actually, it just came out they say don't do ice baths after a workout because you're reducing all that inflammation and it actually decreases your muscle gains, where sauna actually increases your muscle. So sauna is great. I'm just saying you can time it and get even more benefit. If you do a 40-minute session per week and you want to spike growth hormone, that's the way. If you're more worried about muscle gain and reducing inflammation and that, well, then daily's better. So it's all about what you want to get.
Yeah, exactly. I still might try drinking my own breast milk, just so you know, because I have access to it. I might as well. And I know actually bodybuilders do buy breast milk online from women. I think it is for the human growth hormone, right?
I would not doubt that at all. They're the best. You know what? As much we give them a hard time, but they're like better scientists than most scientists and doctors. Like I have learned more from bodybuilders that have come through my clinic than I have from most doctors. And I mean, you got to differentiate the bro science from the real science, but like you usually can figure out when they're talking a little too crazy versus when it works. So it's good to watch.
Yeah. Just closing out here, I'm curious where you think the future of regenerative medicine is going in the next 5 years, maybe for your clinic, but maybe globally. What do you see happening and what trends do you think are coming?
Well, I guess in the realm of stem cells, they're really pushing the exosomes hard because they can do those. But the problem with exosomes is mesenchymal stem cells work by releasing exosomes. And the big difference, like Dr. Kaplan would kind of laugh at these doctors researching it when I would go to conferences with them because he goes, look, you have the perfect delivery system, the mesenchymal stem cell. And there's over 1,000 types of exosomes. They're so small. We haven't even named them all. We don't even know what they all do. Each has like its own individual payload. So maybe in like 10 years, they'll start isolating specific ones for specific issues. And then they can patent it. And it'll become a real medication. So, I mean, that will happen because it can be patented, it can be controlled, it could be profitable. So that's why I don't think it should be the future, but I think it will be because of that. Then you have what are called induced pluripotent stem cells, where they can take skin cells, do some gene editing, and turn them into about any sort of tissue they want. I mean, that was the hope with embryonic stem cells back in the day, because those can become any sort of tissue or cell, but they have to take them from aborted fetuses or aborted babies. So for a lot of people, including myself, I don't think that's ethical. And the other problem is you can't control what they turn into. Like the state of California spent nearly $2 billion researching this, never got it to work because those cells want to become a baby. They always turn into a teratoma or tumor. So they finally gave up on that. But now with the induced pluripotent stem cells, they're finding they can make like heart cells or different cells. So again, you can patent that. They're already doing some like heart transplant type, instead of a heart transplant, differentiating the myocardial cells and doing that. As a Japanese guy that won the Nobel Prize for this. So that will probably happen, which is cool. I think it should. But like I've gotten more patients out of heart failure than I can count just with the mesenchymal cells. So it's like, it's not quite needed, but hey, look, they can control and monetize it. And then gene therapies will be the future. I know some of the top guys in that, like Dr. Williams is a friend and he invented it basically with BioViva. Him and Liz Parrish do all that down in Cabo. It's incredible, but it gets scary and it's super expensive. I mean, that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars right now for like statin or clotho. And then I know the guys at Mini Circle, they're down in Honduras and Roatan doing the follistatin and stuff. They invited me to go there and do it. I chickened out. The gene therapy stuff scares me because I always think, at what point are you no longer human? It just, I don't know, it freaks me out. So I don't mess with the gene stuff, but it's coming and you're going to see some really wild stuff. I literally, we got on, I saw they brought back dire wolves from extinction. The things haven't existed in like 10,000 years.
Wow.
They just bred like the first dire wolves and like there's some crazy gene stuff coming. So we'll see.
Wow. Okay. I need to look that up. Where did that happen with the wolves?
There's some company, I was on Twitter and I follow a lot of this stuff, and it was like, they're like, this is the first howl of a dire wolf you'll hear in like 10,000 years. And they got the little puppies howling. Insane. Their whole business model is to bring back species. So I'm like, oh, yeah.
Jeez.
I read Jurassic Park when I was a kid. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's cool though, but it's like, we're playing with things a little much here. I don't know. That's really exciting. And honestly, what I hear from this is this idea of like a globalized healthcare team for you, especially if you're somebody who gets sick, which is like most people eventually, sadly. And I love that idea. It's sad that we need to be at that point, but it's also amazing that we have resources and clinics like the ones you just mentioned and yours that we can go to when we need this type of help, really. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always going to be options. That's what's cool about more of a global world now. I mean, you can go somewhere else and people are finally getting more acceptable. I mean, when I started, it was really tough to convince people that Mexico's safe, that we've got good medicine, these things. But now it's like, I mean, most of my calls, I don't have to spend half an hour explaining stem cells. They already know about them. It's more, hey, I've researched, you seem like the best. We want to come to you. All right. So it's easier for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like part of the internet, right? Has just made the information so accessible to people, which is so important. And I'm glad that that's happening. So if people do want to come to your clinic, how can they find you and where can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can just go to the website at www.dreambody.clinic. All the information's there. All of our treatments are listed. They all have prices because nothing drives me crazier than a website where you don't know what it costs.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's info. There's tons of patient testimonials. We do videos like every week with people. And studies show, I mean, there's so many studies on this. There's like over 30,000 on PubMed and mesothelioma. There's over 100,000 on Google Scholar. So you can't argue that it hasn't been researched. It is well researched. It's just, they can't do it in your countries usually. So your doctors don't know about it. So that's a tough part.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I will link that in the show notes and on my website so everybody can find you. Thank you so much for this discussion. I loved it and I learned a lot. And maybe I will see you in Mexico very soon. Thanks for tuning in to Biohacking with Brittany. If you loved this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone on their own wellness journey. Stay connected with me on Instagram at BiohackingBrittany for more on high performance health, non-toxic living, and the latest in biohacking. Until next time, keep striving for your healthiest, most vibrant self.